Morning rush hour in America doesn't sound the same anymore. The familiar hiss of espresso steam, the scent of roasted beans, the chatter of people grabbing their morning fix, gone. One morning, thousands of customers walked up to their neighborhood Starbucks, only to find the lights off and a handwritten sign taped to the window that read, "Closed permanently." No corporate notice, no explanation, just silence. 400 stores gone overnight. For millions, this wasn't just about losing a coffee shop, it felt like losing part of the national routine. How did the most recognizable coffee brand in the world, a $119 billion empire, suddenly start shrinking? Is this just business as usual, or are we watching a slow-motion collapse of an American icon? Let's start with the surface story. The viral posts circulating online claim that Starbucks is running out of cash, that it's being forced to close stores because it can't afford to keep them open. But dig a little deeper, and the story becomes far more complex. Starbucks says the closures are part of a strategy, not a surrender. They call it a selective pruning process, choosing to shut down underperforming stores while modernizing others. It's a common corporate move. But when that selection wipes out hundreds of locations in one sweep, the question becomes, is this strategy working, or are they trying to mask a much deeper problem? Financial filings show that these closures are part of an internal restructuring plan known inside the company as Project Bloom. The goal is to refocus investment on profitable stores and reimagine the physical layout for faster service and better throughput. But Wall Street isn't blind. Analysts have pointed out that this is Starbucks' largest wave of closures since the 2008 financial crisis, a time when the company had no choice but to cut deep. Back then, the world blamed the economy. Today, the reasons are far more tangled: tariffs, inflation, labor costs, and a global price war over coffee itself. Starbucks built its brand on a premium promise: quality coffee in a comforting space. But that model depends on stable costs, steady demand, and global predictability. And right now, all three are under threat. In 2025, Washington hiked tariffs on a long list of Brazilian imports, including coffee beans. Brazil, the world's largest coffee exporter, retaliated by scaling back shipments to the US overnight. Roasters were forced to pay more to secure new supply, and retailers like Starbucks faced a choice: raise prices and risk losing customers, or absorb the costs and take a hit to profits. Either way, the numbers don't look good. According to the US Department of Agriculture, America produces less than 1% of the coffee it consumes. Nearly every bean comes from abroad: Brazil, Colombia, Vietnam. That dependency makes Starbucks particularly vulnerable to any shock in global trade. The tariff war between the US and Brazil has quietly turned into a silent tax on every latte Americans buy. Add that to rising labor costs, record-high dairy prices, and inflation hitting everything from cups to rent, and it's no wonder that some stores simply can't survive. The timing couldn't be worse because Starbucks is also facing its toughest competition in history, and it's not coming from Dunkin' or local cafes. It's coming from China. For years, Starbucks bet big on China as its next growth engine, building thousands of stores and branding itself as a symbol of Western sophistication. But in the last 2 years, that bet has started to backfire. A domestic Chinese chain called Luckin Coffee has flipped the script, turning cheap convenience into cultural dominance. While Starbucks charges $5 for a cappuccino, Luckin sells similar drinks for less than $2, and it's everywhere. In 2024, Luckin opened 2 stores for every Starbucks that shut down in America. Reuters reports that Luckin's 2023 revenue reached roughly 24.86 billion yuan, about $3.45 billion, surpassing Starbucks' comparable sales in China. That's not just competition, that's a power shift. Starbucks' market share in China has plummeted from the mid-30s to around 14% in just 5 years. The company insists it won't join a price war, but actions speak louder than words. In early 2025, Starbucks quietly introduced selective price cuts in China, 5 yuan off iced drinks, discounts through its app, moves that signal it's feeling the heat. Think about that for a moment. The American giant that once defined global coffee culture is now fighting to stay relevant in the very market it thought it would own. It's not just coffee anymore, it's a battle for cultural and economic influence. Coffee has become a symbol of soft power. When a customer in Chengdu or Shenzhen chooses a Luckin over a Starbucks, it's not just about price, It's about choosing a domestic brand that feels modern, fast, and local. But this isn't a story of heroes and villains. It's a story about timing, costs, and perception. Starbucks' US network was overextended, too many stores competing for the same dollars, especially in urban areas where rent is sky-high and foot traffic hasn't fully recovered since the pandemic. At the same time, the company has been under intense political and labor pressure. Unionization efforts in several US cities have forced Starbucks to raise wages and adjust staffing models, further squeezing margins. None of this fits neatly into a running out of cash narrative, but it does paint a picture of a company under heavy strain. The deeper issue might be psychological. For decades, Starbucks sold more than coffee, it sold identity. The third place between home and work, where you could belong without obligation. But in a world obsessed with convenience, that promise is starting to feel old-fashioned. Younger consumers, especially Gen Z, are redefining coffee culture. They want speed, digital payment, novelty, and price flexibility, not a $7 frappuccino and a seat by the window. That's why mobile-first chains like Luckin and China's Cotta Coffee are thriving. They aren't competing with Starbucks' experience, they are rewriting what the experience means. And while all of this unfolds, macroeconomics keeps throwing curveballs. The International Coffee Organization reports that global coffee prices have risen more than 90% over the past 2 years. Droughts, transport bottlenecks, and speculative trading have made green beans more expensive even before they hit the roaster. Add tariffs on top of that, and the base cost of a Starbucks cup keeps climbing, with limited room to pass those costs to customers already tightening their budgets. In boardrooms and investor calls, Starbucks executives say these closures are just a recalibration, a way to protect long-term profitability. They promise that many baristas will be rehired in upgraded locations, and that new store designs will feature more drive-through lanes, faster service windows, and smaller footprints. But that's the corporate version of the story. On the ground, it feels different. When a neighborhood loses its only Starbucks, it doesn't feel like recalibration. It feels like retreat. Project Bloom might sound hopeful, but the sight of plywood on once busy storefronts sends a different message. Every closure ripples across supply chains, fewer deliveries for truckers, fewer maintenance calls, fewer contracts for construction crews. It's an ecosystem, and when one part shrinks, everyone feels it. For the company that defined American morning culture, that ripple effect is more than symbolic, it's emotional. Yet, if you think this is the end of Starbucks, think again. The company is too big, too diversified, and too culturally embedded to vanish overnight. But it is changing, and fast. Executives are reportedly exploring the idea of selling a minority stake in their China operations to local investors. A move that would inject fresh capital and local credibility while keeping strategic control. Analysts say such a deal could value Starbucks China at nearly 10 times its 2025 EBITDA, proving there's still belief in the brand's future. But it also admits something quietly: Starbucks can't win this battle alone. So what does all this mean for you, the customer, who just wants their morning coffee? It means the coffee you drink is now a reflection of global economics and geopolitics. Tariffs in Washington, weather in Brazil, and tech startups in Beijing are shaping what ends up in your cup. It means the next time you see a closed cafe, it's not necessarily a sign of bankruptcy, but of a world shifting under the weight of politics, competition, and consumer behavior. Here's the hard truth: Starbucks isn't collapsing, it's evolving under pressure. The company is trying to reinvent itself for a new era where brand loyalty is fragile and cost sensitivity rules. But that reinvention will come with pain. More closures. More controversy. And perhaps, more reinvention than anyone at corporate headquarters is ready to admit. Maybe this moment, the quiet before the next wave of change, is the true test of whether Starbucks remains an American symbol or becomes a case study in global adaptation. Can a brand built on the idea of comfort survive in an economy defined by disruption? Can an American icon stay premium when the rest of the world is racing toward cheaper, faster, and digital first? Because here's the ultimate irony: the world's coffee culture, once shaped by Seattle's green siren, might soon be led by Beijing's blue cup. And while Starbucks closes 400 stores, Luckin is opening 800 more. That's not a coincidence. That's momentum. And momentum, once it shifts, rarely swings back easily. So next time you walk by a darkened Starbucks window, ask yourself, Is this the end of an era, or just the beginning of another one? And more importantly, who will own your morning routine in 5 years, America or China? Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into global business shifts, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Starbucks can bounce back? Or is this the slow fade of an American brand that got too comfortable? Your perspective might just make it into our next video.